Are there other members wishing to speak to the throne speech? I see the honourable member for Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to rise this evening for my maiden speech. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are here on Treaty 6 territory. This land acknowledgement is something that means a lot to me. My riding of Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood is home to a diverse First Nations and Métis population, in fact, the largest urban Indigenous community in this province. I want to thank my family, my friends, my supporters for everything they did to help get me here. And I want to thank Brian Mason. Brian has had an absolutely incredible political career spanning 30 years. I always tell people that he's a legend, and trust me, after years of knocking on doors in Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood, I've lost count of how many people shared their love of Brian. It never failed that when I was out knocking on doors, someone would say, "I love Brian. He was the bus driver, you know." And he's left a lasting legacy and a very high bar to meet. And with Brian, I must also point out Pam Barrett and Ray Martin, two incredible representatives in the Highlands and Norwood neighborhoods who were principled, passionate leaders for our communities. And I'd also like to thank our leader, the member for Edmonton-Strathcona. She's been a true fighter, and I'm so proud to be a part of her team surrounded by incredible colleagues. And most importantly, I want to thank the voters of Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood for electing me to serve them here in the legislature. It's a great honor that they put their trust in me to represent them. I ran for office because I wanted to better serve my community, and I wanted to make life better for my neighbours and their families. And strong communities are exactly what makes Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood a great place to live. Our riding is home to so many amazing schools, strong neighbourhood community leagues, local businesses, service organizations, and cultural groups. It's an area made up of vibrant neighbourhoods that I'm so privileged to represent. There's Highlands and Bellevue, both neighbourhoods that are committed to preserving their history and building a sense of belonging through community events. There's the central neighbourhoods of Boyle Street and Macaulay, with some of the most committed local citizens and home to many service and community organizations. There's Newton and Montrose, a mix of longtime homeowners and new families and a few neat hidden gems in the form of businesses tucked away. There's Alberta Avenue, formerly known as the Norwood neighbourhood, with its main area of 118th Avenue, where you'll find local businesses with a vibrant cultural, food, and art scene. It's a community that's been really focused on revitalization, thanks to the efforts of community members, and they're seeing the rewards of their hard work. There's Eastwood, Delton, and Elmwood Park, just south of the Yellowhead, communities with a growing sense of neighborliness as they see new residents moving in. In the south of the riding, you'll find Riverdale, a beautiful River Valley neighborhood located just east of downtown, with a deep commitment to the environment, progressive values, and one of the strongest networks of local community and cooperation that you'll find in Edmonton. And not to be outdone for beautiful views, there's Virginia Park and Cromdale, the Viewpoint neighborhood, just north along our River Valley, historical neighborhoods with strong community connections. And there's my home community of Parkdale, where my friends and neighbors are committed to democracy and community involvement. When election time came around, they were the only neighborhood that stepped up to host a community forum and to encourage civic participation. Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood is a diverse riding, one of the most diverse in our province. I'm proud to say that we're a welcoming constituency made up of many cultures and communities living together as friends and neighbors. It's comprised of young families and of many seniors as well. And we're home to a vibrant Indigenous population. We've got incredible organizations doing such important work here. Bent Arrow, Ambrose Place, the Métis Seniors Lodge, Renaissance Place, the Native Friendship Center, Ben Calf Rope Society, and many more. And I've met many community members who are committed to addressing systemic issues within the community. And I've joined marches and rallies with hundreds of others in support of addressing the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous community members. And I know that we've got a lot of work to do to address this issue, particularly with the 231 calls for justice that were just released, and to continue in our journey of reconciliation. It's going to take commitment, and it's going to take real action. Over a quarter of folks in our riding are new Canadians who were born outside of Canada, and I'm so proud to have met a lot of friends from Somalia, Eritrea, Portugal, Brazil, Vietnam, the list goes on. And I think of the many folks I've met in our neighborhoods from various cultural communities, including the Muslim community, and I wish them Eid Mubarak as we mark the end of Ramadan. I've shared with community members that I'm committed to continuing to fight racism and Islamophobia, because we cannot allow hatred and intolerance to grow in this province. The province that I know and I love is kind, is open, is accepting, and we must ensure it remains that way. Many in the LGBTQ community live in Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood, and I'm a proud community member. Twice during the campaign, I received messages from folks that I'd met at the doors who reached out to me after I knocked on their door to say how proud they are to support someone who's a member of the community. One young woman shared that she never thought she'd see someone like her in politics, and that means a lot to me, and it shows that representation truly does matter. But this is a community which sadly this government continues to disrespect and ignore in its actions. So while my riding is a fantastic place to live and to work, Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood is also an area with its share of challenges. And as I said, working to address these challenges is why I ran for office. Challenges like tackling poverty. We are riding with some of the highest child poverty rates in the country. And I was so proud to see child poverty rates reduced by half under our government. But this government's throne speech does nothing to continue that important work of reducing child poverty. During the campaign, I met many families who shared with me just how life-changing the $25 a day childcare program has been for them and for their children. One woman shared with me that she's been able to go back to work, which has made a world of difference. Her story of how beneficial affordable childcare has been to her family is a story of countless other families. We know that when families have access to affordable, quality childcare, the statistics show that women are able to re-enter the workforce and that family incomes are boosted. And we also know that child poverty rates are reduced. Offering affordable childcare to families is of course just one way to decrease child poverty, but it's a crucial one. Many of my constituents rely on public transit, affordable housing, disability supports, and many other services and programs to make ends meet. And I heard firsthand from constituents about their struggles as I knocked on doors in the riding. I met one young mother who shared with me how important our government's minimum wage increase was to her. I knew that the evidence shows that a $15 minimum wage is good for the economy, has a positive impact on women, single parents, people who are working more than 2 full-time jobs but struggling to put food on the table and pay their rent. But this woman shared with me her story, and that really made it hit home. She makes minimum wage, she's raising a daughter. She shared that that minimum wage hike meant that she could afford a bus pass on a regular basis and that most of her prescription medications would be covered so that she wouldn't have to do without. She's of course just one person, but her story again is that of many, and I committed to fighting for her and for all of those who deserve a right to a fair wage that affords them the dignity they deserve. But I worry about my constituents like her because I see nothing in this throne speech that will improve her life or that of her neighbours. We also see challenges like improving public health care and education. As a former teacher, education of our young people is obviously something that's really important to me. And growing up in the town of Barhead, Alberta, I was lucky to have great teachers who inspired me to be a teacher myself. And it's so critical that we invest in education and ensure that the funding goes to where it's needed most. Mental health supports, proper resources for teachers and educational assistance. I know what it was like as a teacher to feel like there were never enough resources to meet my students' needs. We must prioritize our province's young people so that they get the best start in life, and we need to protect our students to ensure that no child feels unsafe in our schools. My constituents enjoy fantastic local schools and healthcare services, yet again, I see nothing in this throne speech to improve on those. All I see is the same conservative rhetoric about efficiencies, cuts, red tape, and privatization, which history has shown will do us nothing to support the public education and healthcare that my constituents need. And with this reckless approach, this government is not just putting our healthcare and education at risk, but our environment as well. So many of my constituents, young and old, shared with me just how important protecting our environment is. They recognize that we have a climate crisis, and they know that it's on us to take action. Because if not us, who? This government's throne speech and legislative agenda does very little, if nothing, to meet the needs of the many people and communities that make up Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood. It does nothing to create good, clean jobs or help those who are struggling now. It does nothing to help them prepare for the future that lies ahead. It does nothing to preserve our earth for future generations. And my constituents deserve better than this. All Albertans deserve better than this. My constituents elected me to represent Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood in this assembly. They elected me to work to make life better for them. And I'm committed to doing just that, which is why I will continue to fight for this government to do better. And that's why I can't, in good conscience, support this government's throne speech. And while I spoke about the challenges that I'm ready to take on in my riding, there's so much to be proud about. And each day, even when it's tough, I'll remind myself how lucky I am to be here in this building representing the incredible people of Edmonton-Highlands-Norwood. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.